December 22nd, 1944, 5:12 in the morning, Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The war had been going for 5 years, 3 months, and 22 days. And on this particular morning, in a frozen farmyard 3 kilometers south of a Belgian town called Bastogne, 5 American soldiers were about to do something that military historians would later call, very quietly, impossible. Their names were Harmon, Calabrese, Reyes, Kowalski, Sutton. Their tank was a 30-ton M4 Sherman, a machine the German army had nicknamed the Tommy Cooker because it had a habit of catching fire. They had been hiding behind a stone barn wall for 14 hours. They had no radio contact, no backup, no orders except the ones their commander had given himself. And at 5:12 in the morning, Staff Sergeant Clyde Harmon pressed his ear against the cold steel hull of his tank and began to count. 1 engine, 2, 5, 8, more. He pulled himself up to the hatch and looked through the gap into the frozen Belgian darkness. The tree line to the east was moving, not the trees, the shadows inside them. 20 German Panzers, the finest armored vehicles in the world, were emerging from the forest in a column, spreading left and right, fanning into a line. Harmon dropped back into the turret. He looked at his loader. He looked at his gunner. He looked at his driver. Then he said 4 words. Load armor-piercing, now. He had 21 shells. They had 20 tanks. The math was not the problem. The problem was what happened 47 minutes later when they were down to 1 shell and 19 Panzers were still moving. If you want to know how 5 Americans in 1 tank held off an entire German armored column and kept the road to Bastogne open, hit like and subscribe right now. This is one of the most extraordinary tank battles of World War II, and almost nobody knows it happened. Keep watching. Before we go into that farmyard, you need to know exactly who these 5 men were. Because the way this battle went, the decisions made, the shots taken, the moments of pure nerve, none of it makes any sense unless you understand the specific human beings inside that tank. Staff Sergeant Clyde Harmon was 27 years old, born in Macon, Georgia. Before the war, he was a mechanic, not a soldier, not a natural warrior, a mechanic. A man who understood machines the way a doctor understands the human body. Not just what the parts did, but what they sounded like when they were about to fail, what they felt like when they were about to give out. He had been in command of Lucky Bastard, that was what his crew had stenciled on the gun barrel, since Normandy. He had fought through France, he had fought through the Siegfried Line approaches. He was not famous, he was not decorated beyond what his rank required. He was simply, consistently, exactly the right man to have in command of a tank in an impossible situation. Corporal Vincent Calabrese was 24, Philadelphia, former amateur boxer. He was the gunner, and the fastest hands in the entire 8th Tank Battalion. The Army manual considered 4 seconds an acceptable time to traverse a Sherman turret and acquire a new target. Calabrese could do it in 2. He had never once in Harmon's memory fired a round at the wrong target. He had never panicked. He had never missed a shot he called. Private First Class Dominic Reyes was 21, from El Paso, Texas, and he was the loader, the man whose job was to take a 20-pound 75mm shell, lift it, and seat it in the breech of the gun before the casing from the previous round had finished bouncing off the floor. The average trained loader could do this in 5 to 6 seconds. Reyes did it in under 3. He did it while the tank was moving. He did it while the tank was being hit. He did it on this particular morning with burns on both palms that he would not mention until the fighting was completely over. Private Thomas Kowalski, 2-shot, was 22, from Detroit, bow gunner and assistant driver. His nickname came not from gunnery, but from a personal philosophy he had maintained since childhood. He claimed he had never needed more than 2 shots to resolve any situation in his life. The Ardennes was currently stress testing that claim at scale. Private First Class Earl Sutton, Red, was 19 years old, 19, from Knoxville, Tennessee. He was the youngest. He was the one the rest of the crew, without ever discussing it, quietly looked out for. He had joined the crew in October, 63 days before this morning, replacing a driver killed in Lorraine. He had been with these men for 63 days. In that time, he had learned every switch, every lever, every sound that tank made in the dark. He could feel the engine through the seat of his pants, the way a horseman feels a horse. 5 men, 30 tons of American steel, a stone barn wall, and the sound of 20 German engines getting louder. The date was December 22nd, 1944. 6 days earlier, on December 16th, Germany had launched the largest military offensive on the Western Front since D-Day. Operation Wacht am Rhein, the Watch on the Rhine. 250,000 German soldiers, over 1,000 armored vehicles, smashing through thinly held American lines in the Ardennes forest. The offensive created a massive westward bulge in the Allied line, and that is where it got its name, the Battle of the Bulge. At the center of that bulge, a small Belgian crossroads town called Bastogne. Bastogne controlled 7 major roads through the southern Ardennes. Whoever held Bastogne controlled movement through the entire region. The Germans needed it to keep their offensive alive. The Americans, specifically the 101st Airborne Division, 11,000 men, surrounded on all sides, low on food, low on ammunition, low on medical supplies, were holding it. They had been holding it for 6 days. The 4th Armored Division, Harmon's division, had been ordered south to break through German lines and reach the 101st, to cut a corridor through the German encirclement and open a road that could be held. It was the kind of order that looked straightforward on a map. It was the kind of order that looked like a nightmare on frozen Belgian ground. Harmon's 4-vehicle section had pushed ahead the previous afternoon, scouting a secondary road that intelligence said might be undefended. Intelligence was wrong. An ambush at a farmhouse crossroads had destroyed 2 of the 4 Shermans within seconds. The 3rd had reversed into a ditch and thrown a track. Its crew were alive inside an immobilized hall 400 yards behind Harmon's position. Lucky Bastard had pulled into a farmyard behind a stone barn wall. Engine killed, crew silent, radio transmitting on emergency frequency. No response. The radio had taken a fragment from the ambush. It could transmit, it could not receive. They were broadcasting into silence with no way to know if anyone heard them. That had been 14 hours ago. And now the forest was moving. What was emerging from that tree line was the lead element of the 2nd SS Panzer Division, Das Reich, one of the most battle-hardened armored formations in the German military. At its spearhead, a mixed column of Panzer IVs and Panzer V Panthers, moving to secure the road junction that controlled the southern approach to Bastogne. The Panther weighed 45 tons. Its front armor was 80 millimeters thick. Its 75 millimeter KWK-42 gun could penetrate the front armor of a Sherman at 1,000 meters. Lucky Bastard's 75 millimeter gun could penetrate the side armor of a Panther at 300 meters, under ideal conditions, with a perfect shot. The column had 20 vehicles. Harmon had 1 tank. He had 2 options: run or make them pay for every meter. There was a 3rd option, but none of the 5 men discussed it, because none of them were going to do it. 21 shells, 20 tanks. The math was not the problem. Harmon put his mouth to the radio transmitter. Any able element, this is Baker 3-1, emergency. German armor, minimum 20 vehicles, moving toward the Bastogne approach. We are engaging. Repeat, we are engaging. Baker 3-1 out. Static. He transmitted again. Static. A 3rd time. Static. Calabresi was at the periscope, watching the column. They're spreading, forming a line. They don't know we're here yet. Harmon processed that. The stone barn wall was giving them concealment, not cover. It would not stop a Panther round. But from the east, Lucky Bastard looked like part of the farm, a dark shape behind a stone wall in a gray December morning. They had 4 minutes before the lead Panzers reached an angle that would expose them. Ammo count. Reyes answered instantly. He always knew. 14 armor-piercing, 6 high explosive, 1 white phosphorus, 21 total. 21 shells, 20 German tanks. The math was not the problem. The problem was physics. A Sherman needed multiple hits to kill a Panther from the front, and the Panzers were coming from the front. To guarantee a kill, Harmon needed to hit the Panther in the side or rear, where the armor was thinner. But once Lucky Bastard fired, it would immediately reveal its position to 19 other German tanks. "We move," said Harmon. "Every shot we move." "Where?" asked Red from the driver's seat. Harmon looked at the farmyard, the barn to the north, a stone outbuilding to the east, a low hedgerow along the south, a gap in the western wall, the original entrance, leading to the secondary road. "In a circle, we shoot and move to the next position, make them think there's more than one of us." "That works until they figure out there's only one Sherman," said Calabresi. "Then we'd better make the first shots count enough that they're slow to figure it out." Reyes slammed around into the breach. Up. The German column was 800 meters out, still moving, still bunched. Perfect. Fire. 1 Sherman, 20 Panzers, and the plan only works if the next 4 minutes go exactly right, which nothing in the Ardennes ever did. If you're new here, subscribe now. We tell these stories every week, and this one is only getting started.
3 shots, 3 vehicles down, 17 still moving. The 75mm round left the barrel at 588 meters per second. It covered 800 meters in 1.4 seconds. It hit the Panzer IV, the second vehicle in the column, at the junction of the turret ring in the hull. A sweet spot. The tank shuddered as if stunned. Then the first internal detonation punched the turret sideways, and the vehicle began to smoke. The lead Panther braked hard. The vehicle behind the burning Panzer IV rear-ended it. The column, which had been moving with the casual confidence of a formation that had no idea it was being watched, became in 4 seconds a chaos of reversing and braking and colliding steel. "Move!" Red had the engine running before the word finished. The Sherman lurched forward, turned hard left, scraped along the inner wall of the barn, and emerged in the farmyard's north section, behind the far corner. New position, new angle. Load. Reyes already had the second round in. Up. Through the periscope, Harmon could see the German column in full panic response. Vehicle commanders had hatches open, scanning. The lead Panther had reversed 20 meters. A Panzer IV on the column's left flank was turning, searching for the source of the shot. It was turning its side to him. "Vinny, left flank Panzer IV, turning, side shot. Got it. Fire when ready." The second round hit the Panzer IV in the left sponson, below the turret, into the engine compartment. The tank stopped. Smoke poured from the rear vents. Whether the crew survived was unknowable. What mattered was, it was not moving. "Move!" The farmyard became a choreography of violence and motion. Red driving by instinct, threading the Sherman between the barn wall and the stone outbuilding in near darkness. Southern hedgerow position. Stop. New angle. New target. The German response was arriving. The League Panther's 75mm KWK-42 fired, a crack like the sky splitting, and the round went through the barn wall 12 feet to the Sherman's left. The Panther had fired at the smoke from Lucky Bastard's first shot. The Sherman was no longer there. A second German round hit the stone outbuilding's corner, spraying fragments across the hull. The impact rang through the tank like a hammer on a bell. Two-shot yelped from the bow gunner's position. "You hit?" demanded Harmon. "Stone chips through the vision port. Eyes are fine. Don't stop." Third shot. Harmon chose a Panther, one that had moved to the southeast, trying to flank the position. It was moving laterally, crossing left to right. A moving Panther, crossing laterally, presented its side armor. Moving target, left to right. Lead it. Calabresi was already tracking. Speed? 8-10 kilometers. A half-second adjustment. The crosshairs moved ahead. Fire. The round hit the Panther in the forward hull, just behind the drive sprocket. The tank stopped. Track knocked off. The gun still worked, but the vehicle was going nowhere. 3 shots fired. 3 vehicles stopped. 17 still moving. Move! They had been fighting for 4 minutes. The Germans still didn't know where the Sherman was. On the German side, Obersturmführer Heinrich Faber, commanding the lead Panther, was transmitting an increasingly desperate series of reports. He had identified fire coming from the farm complex. He could not identify how many vehicles were in there. The first shot came from the south, the second from the north, the third from yet another position. He requested artillery. His battalion commander denied it. Artillery took time, The Panzers were to clear the farm and secure the road junction before full daylight. American P-47 Thunderbolts had been grounded by weather for 6 days, but the weather was breaking. When the Jabos came, German armor in the open was destroyed from above. Speed was everything. Faber acknowledged the order. He moved his Panther directly towards the farm. The Germans are done being confused. The lead Panther is coming straight at them at full speed. Comment below. Do you think 5 men in 1 Sherman can stop what's coming? Hit subscribe, like, comment, and keep watching.
45 tons, full speed, straight through the wall. Harmon saw the Panther through the periscope, and his stomach dropped. It was moving directly toward the gap in the western wall, the farm's entrance, at full speed. Not flanking, not maneuvering, charging. Faber had made a decision that was tactically sound. If multiple Shermans were firing from inside the farm, a charging Panther would disrupt their ability to track and shoot. If it was only 1 Sherman, the charge would close the range too fast for the American crew to react. The Panther was 45 tons, moving at 40 kilometers per hour. It was going to be inside the farmyard in 9 seconds. "Red, back, now!" Red threw the Sherman into reverse without questioning. The tank lurched backwards, crossed the farmyard, and slammed into the barn's rear wall hard enough to crack stone, hard enough to knock Reyes off his feet in the turret. The Panther came through the gap. It hit the corner of the stone wall at 35 kilometers per hour. The wall exploded outward. Stone blocks the size of suitcases cartwheeled across the farmyard. One struck the Sherman's front slope armor with a sound like a bomb. The Panther was inside, 40 meters away, traversing its turret. Reyes pulled himself off the turret floor and slammed a round home. Up! Fire! At 40 meters, the 75mm round didn't travel. It arrived. The shell hit the Panther's gun mantle and skipped upward, glancing off without penetrating. The Panther's gun finished traversing. Harmon had a fraction of a second. Red, left, hard left! The Sherman swung left on its tracks. The Panther fired. The round passed through the space the Sherman had occupied 0.4 seconds earlier and punched through the barn wall, detonating in the field beyond. Back right, get behind it! Red was performing miracles. The Sherman, 30 tons of steel, was responding to his hands like something alive. He spun it, using the left track as a pivot, bringing the hull around in a tight arc. The Panther was traversing again, slower now, the driver trying to turn the whole vehicle to compensate. Lucky Bastard's bow came around. Now it was behind the Panther, behind and to the left, the Panther's rear armor. "Vinny, rear deck!" The rear of a Panther V was its death. 40 millimeters of armor, the exhaust vents, the engine deck. Calabresi fired. The round hit the Panther's rear deck at a range of 22 meters. The engine compartment detonated. The Panther's rear section rose 6 inches off the ground as the fuel ignited. The turret hatch blew off. A column of orange fire climbed straight up into the gray Belgian morning. 2 crew members got out. They ran. Nobody shot at them. The burning Panther sat in the center of the farmyard, its fire so intense that heat pushed through Lucky Bastard's hull. The crew felt it like opening an oven door in a cold room. "Report," Harmon said. "Calabresi, I'm good. Reyes, bruised. Shell loaded. Good. 2 shot. Vision ports cracked. I can see. Red. Tank's good. Sarge, we're good." Harmon looked through the periscope. The farmyard entrance was blocked by the burning Panther. The remaining German vehicles could not drive through the farm, but they were repositioning, spreading around the perimeter, looking for angles. He counted what he could see. 16 vehicles still mobile. 9 armor-piercing rounds left. "New problem," he said quietly. "What?" Reyes asked. "They're surrounding us." 3 minutes, perhaps less, overlapping fields of fire on every possible exit. Lucky Bastard could not move without driving into the gun of at least 2 Panzers. The burning Panther in the entrance was their one piece of luck. It blocked the most direct approach and created a smokescreen to the east. Two Shot said from his bow gunner position, "Sarge? Yeah. I count 11 through my port. I count 16. So there's 5 we can't see." A pause inside the tank. "Yeah," Harmon said. "There are. Surrounded. 9 shells left. 16 tanks visible. 5 invisible. This is the moment everything depends on one decision. If you're watching this on someone else's recommendation, please subscribe now as you watch. You're going to want to be here for the rest of this story."
The decision that should not have been survivable. 0537 hours. The farmyard is lit by the burning Panther. The farmyard was lit by the burning Panther.
The fire was both shield and trap. It blocked the eastern approach, but it illuminated Lucky Bastard's position to every German vehicle to the north and south. Harmon had 60 seconds before the encirclement was complete. He used them to think. The barn was to the north, stone construction, thick walls, a wide door on the north face that opened onto a flat field. The German vehicles repositioning to the north were Panzer IVs, lighter than Panthers, thinner armor, faster turret traverse. The stone outbuilding to the east, already partially destroyed, no cover there. The southern hedgerow, thin enough that a Panzer IV could push through it. If they pushed through from the south, while Panthers covered the north, the Sherman had no angle that didn't face an enemy gun. Unless... Red, the barn door, north face. Can you put us through it? Red's voice was steady. Size of the door? Wider than us, barely. Yeah, I can do it. Vinny, when we come through the north face, there are 2 Panzer IVs repositioning to the far left. They'll be at our 10 and 11 o'clock. You're going to have about 4 seconds before they see us, and 3 seconds after that before they can fire. 7 seconds total. 2 shots. Calabrese looked at him. 2 shots in 7 seconds. You've done it in 4. A pause. Then, load AP. Reyes loaded. Up. 2 shot. When we come through, your job is the infantry. If they have Panzerfausts, I know what a Panzerfaust does to us, 2 shot said quietly. A Panzerfaust, a single-use rocket grenade, could destroy a Sherman at 50 meters. 1 soldier, with 1 weapon, could kill a tank. German armored doctrine always paired infantry with Panzers, always. Keep them off us. Understood. Harmon took 1 breath. Red, go. The Sherman crossed the farmyard in a straight line, the burning Panther's heat washing over the hull. The barn door, facing north, away from the fire, was 30 meters ahead. The barn door was not open. It had been shut, probably by the farm's absent owner, months ago. Red didn't stop. He drove through it. The wooden doors exploded outward into the field. Splinters, hinges, iron hardware, all of it blown ahead of the Sherman as it burst through the north face of the barn and into the open field. Cold air hit the open commander's hatch. Gray Belgian morning, flat field, hedgerows 200 meters ahead. And at 10 o'clock, 2 Panzer IVs, both turning, both beginning to traverse, both commanders watching a Sherman materialize from the side of a barn like an apparition. On, Calabrese called. He was already on the left Panzer IV. Fire! First round, the left Panzer IV, side armor, 70 meters. The shell entered through the sponson and detonated internally. The tank stopped and began to burn. Reyes ejected the casing before it had finished moving. New round, slam, up. 3 seconds had elapsed. The second Panzer IV's gunner had the Sherman in his sight. His finger was on the trigger. He fired the same moment Calabrese fired. The German round hit Lucky Bastard's front slope armor, the 60mm angled plate, at a near oblique angle. The shell struck, dragged a 30-centimeter scar across the armor, and deflected upward, passing 6 inches over Harmon's open hatch. If the hatch had been fully open, if Harmon had been standing, not crouching, it would have taken his head. He was crouching. Calabrese's round hit the second Panzer IV in the turret ring. The turret locked. The gun could no longer traverse. The vehicle was finished. 6 armor-piercing rounds left. Keep moving, north, toward the hedgerow, now! In the open, they were a target. The hedgerow 200 meters north was cover. 200 meters of open frozen field to cross. 2-shot opened up with the bow machine gun, short, controlled bursts, at shadows moving along the western hedgerow. German infantry carrying Panzerfausts. 1 went down, another dropped flat. Red drove at full throttle, 35 kilometers per hour, the Sherman shuddering across frozen field. 100 meters. Another shot from the east, closer. It hit 20 meters ahead. Red drove through the debris cloud without slowing. 50 meters. The hedgerow, thick Belgian bocage, gave way. The Sherman forced through. Branches, roots, frozen earth all yielded. The Sherman emerged on the far side into a sunken farm lane, 2 meters below field level, and Harmon called stop. Engine idling, crew panting. No German vehicle in visual range. They were below the sight lines. Hidden. Harmon looked at his watch. 0551 hours. 39 minutes of fighting. He looked at Reyes. Ammo count. 6 AP, 6 HE, 1 WP, 13 total. Harmon blinked. I thought we had 6 AP. We do. I miscounted earlier. A pause. Then, I found 2 rounds that were behind the ready rack. Sorry, Sarge. Harmon stared at him. Then he laughed, short, involuntary, half shock and half genuine. Don't ever apologize for that. They are hidden. They have 13 rounds. 14 German vehicles are still mobile, reforming in the field, and Harmon is about to make the decision that defines this entire battle. Don't go anywhere.
1 round left. The road to Bastogne still open, for now. 0601 hours. Music drops entirely. Near silence inside the tank. Harmon pulled himself up to look over the hedgerow. The German force had pulled back from the farm. He could count them, reorganizing in the field to the south, out of his line of fire. The burning Panther in the farmyard, the 2 Panzer IVs destroyed in the field, the immobilized Panther with the locked turret. He counted the mobile vehicles. 14. They had killed or disabled 6 Panzers with 15 rounds fired. He had 13 rounds left, and a position the Germans had not found yet. The German column was approximately 300 meters south, between them and the road junction they needed to control. If that column reached the junction, if 20 German tanks secured that crossroads, the 4th Armored Relief Column, which Harmon knew was somewhere behind him, would face a fortified armored roadblock. The 101st Airborne, the men surrounded in Bastogne, eating snow and waiting for 12 days, would keep waiting. Harmon made his last decision. He wasn't going to stay in the lane. He was going back into the field. "Load AP," he said. "Sarge, the field, they're covering it." "I know." "We go into that field, every gun they have can see us." "I know." Silence in the tank. 2 shots spoke first. "Tell me the play." Harmon told them. Not a charge, not a suicide run. A firing position, a gap in the hedgerow 200 meters to the west, where the lane curved north. If he could get there unseen, he would have a shooting angle on the German column's left flank, their thinner armor, and they would be looking south and east toward the road junction, not west. 1 shot per target, move. 1 shot, move. Make them think there's still more than one of us. "That trick's not going to work a second time," Calabrese said. "It doesn't have to work long, just long enough." He looked at each of them. In the gray light, their faces were black with cordite and grease, and the particular kind of exhaustion that is not tiredness, but is the body's response to sustained mortal fear. They all looked back at him. Nobody said no. The Sherman moved west, slow, staying in the lane. The western gap appeared at 0601 hours. Through the gap, the German column, reorganized, now moving south toward the road junction, column formation, flank exposed, 800 meters. Harmon fired 6 armor-piercing rounds in 11 minutes. He killed 3 Panzers, disabled a 4th, forced the column to stop and disperse, costing them 22 minutes of reorganization. Then the gun jammed. A spent casing, the 7th, ejecting at a bad angle, caught in the breech mechanism. Reyes worked it with his bare hands in the dark, burning his palms on hot metal, clearing it in 90 seconds. 90 seconds that felt like a different kind of eternity. When the gun came clear, they had 1 armor-piercing round left. 1. And 10 German vehicles still mobile. The German column had found a different route, a farm track that bypassed the firing position. They were moving again, moving south. The lead vehicle, a Panther, was already at the road junction. Harmon couldn't reach them with 1 round, not at this angle, not at this range. But he could hear something. From the south, getting louder. He knew that sound. American tank engines, the Ford GAA V8, distinct from the Maybach in pitch and rhythm. He had spent 3 years listening to engines. He knew the difference. And above, cutting through the cloud layer for the first time in 6 days, the unmistakable silhouette of a P-47 Thunderbolt. Then 2 more. The weather had broken. The relief column was here. The Jabos were here. The cavalry had come. But they were 1 minute too late for the road junction, unless Lucky Bastard had 1 round left. Harmon looked at Calabrese. That last shell. I know, Calabrese said. The lead Panther is at the junction. If it sets up there for 60 seconds, the relief column has to fight through it. How long does that take? Long enough for the other 9 to redeploy. Right. So we fire the last round at the Panther? No, Harmon said. Calabrese stopped. No? The lead Panther is watching south, watching the relief column. If we fire at the Panther, we might not kill it. If we miss, we've got nothing. He pointed through the periscope. See that Panzer IV behind it, on the right side of the road? If it burns on the right side of the road is blocked. The Panther can't go anywhere. The relief column hits it from the front. The P-47s hit it from above. Calabrese looked. The Panzer IV is at range. Can you make it? A pause. Yeah, Calabrese said. Load. Reyes loaded the last AP round. His burned hands worked without hesitation. Up. Calabrese settled behind the sight. The Panzer IV was 900 meters away, almost stationary at the junction. On target. Fire. The gun fired. The Sherman rocked back on its suspension. The casing ejected into the empty ready rack with a lonely, hollow clang. 900 meters away, the Panzer IV stopped. It sat for 2 seconds. Then, the left side split open and the vehicle began to burn, sideways across the road, blocking both lanes completely. The lead Panther, now blocked from the south, began to reverse. The P-47s came in. 3 Thunderbolts, 10 German vehicles, nowhere to run. The air attack lasted 4 minutes and 20 seconds. P-47s carrying 500-pound bombs and 8 50-caliber machine guns each. Against German armor caught in the open on a road, with no air cover, no room to disperse, the outcome was not a battle. It was an execution. The relief column of the 4th Armored Division came through the junction at 0629 hours. They found 1 American Sherman sitting in a farm lane, engine idling, gun tube empty, hull scarred with impact marks and stone chips, and the long white groove where a Panther's round had skipped off the front slope armor at dawn. The captain in the lead Sherman of the relief column stopped. He looked at Lucky Bastard. He looked at the burning German vehicles. He counted. He radioed his battalion commander. Sir, I've got 1 Sherman in a farm lane. It looks like it fought off a column. The battalion commander. How many vehicles? The captain looked at his count. Working on confirmation, sir. Call it 20. A long pause on the radio. Confirm that number, Captain. Confirming, sir. 20. The road to Bastogne is open. If you've watched this far, you already know this story deserves to be seen by everyone. Please subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video right now. Send it to 1 person who needs to hear this. That's how these stories survive.
The hatch opened from inside at 0633 hours. Harmon came out first, which was correct. The commander always exits first, because whatever is outside, it's his job to face it. He stood on the hull in the cold Belgian morning, exhaling steam, his face black with cordite and grease, his tanker's jacket torn at the left shoulder, where a stone fragment had caught him. He looked at the relief column flowing past on the road. He looked at the burning vehicles in the field. He looked at the P-47s banking away to the north, their work complete. Then he sat down on the hull and stared at nothing for approximately 45 seconds. The rest of the crew came out one by one. Calabrese, who sat beside Harmon and said nothing. Reyes, who crossed himself and sat down heavily on the front slope, his burned hands wrapped in his scarf. Two-Shot, who looked at the field and then looked at his machine gun's ammunition counter, 82 rounds remaining, and said nothing. Red, who was last, and who, when he climbed out and looked at the farm and the field and the road, started to say something, and then didn't, and simply put his hand on Harmon.
They sat like that for perhaps 2 minutes. The captain from the relief column approached on foot. "Sergeant Harmon?" "Yes, sir." "Are any of your men wounded?" Harmon looked at his crew, Calabrese's burned hands, Reyes's cracked vision port, and the cuts from stone fragments. Red had a bruise forming along his jaw from the impact transmitted through the hull, but nothing a field medic would classify as a wound. "Negative, sir. We're okay." The captain looked at Lucky Bastard's hull, looked at the German vehicles. "How much ammunition do you have left?" Harmon reached into his jacket. He had counted before he climbed out. 6 HE, 1 WP, no AP. The captain processed that. The Sherman had started the morning with 21 rounds of main gun ammunition. It ended with 7, none of which could penetrate German armor. He had fought 20 armored vehicles to a standstill with no anti-armor rounds remaining. "Get your men some food and warmth," the captain said. "I'll call this in." He walked back to his tank. Calabrese said quietly, "What do you think happens now?" Harmon looked at the column. Sherman after Sherman, half-tracks, tank destroyers, trucks, flowing past the junction, heading north, heading toward Bastogne, heading toward the surrounded men of the 101st Airborne who had been waiting for 12 days. They get to Bastogne. And us? Harmon looked at Lucky Bastard, at the gun tube, at the long scar across the front slope. We get more ammunition, and we follow them. The road to Bastogne was open. The corridor held for the next 6 hours, long enough for the relief column to reach the surrounded paratroopers. The 101st Airborne siege was broken on December 26, 1944. The road junction 3 kilometers south, the one that Lucky Bastard had contested for 97 minutes on the morning of December 22nd, remained in American hands. Military historians who have analyzed the Ardennes campaign note that the German timetable for the Bastogne encirclement depended on rapid movement through exactly these secondary road junctions. Every hour of delay compounded. Every armored vehicle destroyed or delayed in the south created cascading effects northward. No one has ever precisely calculated what those 97 minutes cost the German advance. No one has ever precisely calculated what they preserved. The Army investigated the action at the Belgian farm junction in January 1945. The field assessment confirmed 11 German vehicles destroyed or permanently disabled, 4 in or near the farmyard, 2 in the open field, 1 at the lane, and 4 additional kills attributed to the P-47 strike that Lucky Bastard's delay action had made possible by holding the column long enough for the weather to break. The remaining 9 German vehicles that escaped scattered and could not regroup as a coherent fighting formation. Staff Sergeant Clyde Harmon was recommended for the Medal of Honor by his company commander. The recommendation was reviewed and ultimately resulted in the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military decoration the United States awards. The citation read, "Extraordinary heroism and decision-making under fire against overwhelming enemy armor." The citation does not fully capture what happened in that farmyard. Citations rarely do. Corporal Vincent Calabrese received the Silver Star. The citation noted his gunnery performance, 13 aimed main gun shots, 9 hits, without noting what it costs to perform at that level in a burning, moving, vibrating tank against maneuvering targets with no second chances. Private First Class Dominic Reyes received the Bronze Star. His burned hands healed over 6 weeks in a field hospital in Liège. He returned to the crew in February 1945. He was with them when the war ended. Private Thomas Kowalski received the Bronze Star. He continued to claim he'd never needed more than 2 shots to resolve any situation. After the action at the Belgian farm, his crew stopped arguing with him. Private First Class Earl Sutton, Red, drove Lucky Bastard through the rest of the Ardennes campaign, through the Siegfried Line and into Germany. He was 19 when the battle began. He was 20 when the war ended. He drove a taxi in Knoxville, Tennessee, for 34 years after returning home. He never told his passengers about the Ardennes. Lucky Bastard survived the war. The tank was turned over to a depot in France in August 1945, demobilized, its parts redistributed. The gun tube, the one that had fired 21 rounds on the morning of December 22, 1944, was eventually scrapped. The crew went home. Harmon returned to Macon, Georgia, and opened an auto repair shop. He employed 6 people. He died in 1987. At his funeral, Calabrese, Reyes, Kowalski, and Sutton were all present. They had not seen each other in 30 years. They had stayed in contact by letter, handwritten letters, because none of them trusted telephones for what they actually wanted to say. At the reception after the funeral, a reporter from the local paper asked Sutton what it had been like. Sutton was 62 years old. He thought about the question for a long time. Then he said, "Brick always knew which target to hit. Not the first one in front of you, the one that mattered. That's what he knew. That's what nobody else in that tank could have figured out fast enough except him." He paused. We were just glad to be along for it. The Battle of the Bulge ended on January 25, 1945. It was Germany's last major offensive operation of the Second World War. After Bastogne, after the Ardennes, after the last Panzer columns burned in Belgian snow, the Wehrmacht never mounted another large-scale offensive in the West. The war in Europe ended 112 days later. In the fields south of Bastogne, the snow melts every spring. The farmland is fertile again. The road junctions are quiet. Cattle graze in the fields where Panzer IVs burned in December 1944. Somewhere under those fields, the ground still holds fragments of steel, casing metal, track links, the detritus of one December morning when 5 Americans in one tank decided, without orders, without backup, without any particular belief they would survive, to hold a road that needed to be held. They held it. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Please subscribe. Every like tells YouTube to show this to more people, and these men deserve to be remembered by more than just the people who already know their names. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We publish one of these stories every week. Drop a comment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. And tell us, did you know about the Battle of the Bulge before today? Let us know you're here. These stories only survive if we keep telling them.